History. Well, that's what we're doing now for the next several months. Our heritage, our history, and what a wonderful history it is, because it's all wrapped up in the Lord Jesus Christ, that he's the focus of it all. And our memory verse, as you all know, is, then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. And that's found in John 8:12. And tonight we'll probably spend quite a bit of time in the book of John. You know, he seemed to know Jesus on a heart-to-heart way, and so he has a lot to say about the Lord that's a little different than some of the others. The others are good too, but John just had that special relationship. We all like light. Jesus is the light of the world. And you know, as dark as it may get, and we have to admit to ourselves, it looks mighty dark, and you wonder at times, how will we do? But you know, Jesus' light still shines out, and there's still souls out there that are looking and longing for a way out of darkness. The darkness of sin is no place that you want to spend much time in, where you don't know where you're going, what you're doing, don't know how you're going to get out of the mess you're in. But oh, when the light of Jesus' love and what he can do for you shines in your life, and you take faith in love and his care for you, it just makes all the difference in the world as you surrender your life to him and he turns the light on in your life. You remember when you got saved? I mean, most of us, some of us, at least a lot of us, were raised around the gospel, and we'd heard it all our lives. We were exposed to the light from the time we were really little. But you know, we still lived in darkness because of sin. And oh, what a difference it was when the light shone in and we gave Jesus our hearts. Everything looked so different. You know the testimonies. Why the grass was greener, the sky was bluer, and there was all kinds of great things going on because we were trying to explain what it meant to have the light of Jesus shining in our hearts. Well, he did it for us, and you know, he leads us day by day, guides our lives, and we walk in the light as he is in the light, and then we have fellowship one with another, and Jesus is there, and he's very real in our lives. The history of our church is interesting. I had to dig out the old history book. So sometimes we got to get reminded of things that we should know, and we maybe do, but we forgot. Sounds like a senior for you. The sheet here has the history, and I know we can get through it quicker if I just read it because it's more terse and we just won't be running with too many words. It says our historical context. It says, when the design of the church logo was contemplated, the decision was made to illustrate a phrase that has been with us since the early days of this work: Jesus, the light of the world. This phrase was first displayed in 1917 as an electric sign on our church building at Front and Burnside. When the tabernacle was built in 1921, it featured the same words. Today, more than 80 years later, it is still there, and that's on the tabernacle, by the way. When the headquarters church was moved to 6th and Burnside in 1922, the same message was displayed on top of the new building, and it was proclaimed from that spot for about 60 years. Its position at the heart of downtown Portland made it a well-known landmark. Through the years, branch churches in many locations around the world have chosen to display the same heartwarming message. Thought it was interesting about, I'm not a local person, so I don't know much about, you know, the downtown. We're there on occasion. But it was interesting to note that they worshiped in the old blacksmith shop from 1906 until 1908. And then they moved to a place called, they named it the Gospel Lighthouse by the Bridge. And this was Front and Burnside. And I wasn't sure this is a modern day now. I got my Google out and I thought, I got to see where Front Street is. Because I honestly, is it on the south side? I still don't quite know the city. Is it on the other side of the bridge, or is it on the 6th and Burnside? And I think I determined it was on the 6th and Burnside side. But this was interesting. Great revivals took place there. They moved there in 1908, and they were there until 1922, when the city of Portland decided to make the Burn Street Bridge bigger, or they tore it down and made another bridge. Because I thought, wouldn't it be fun to drive by this building? Well, it's somewhere under the bridge, and it's not there anymore. But you know what? There's miracles of things that the Lord did at that place that's still living today. And if it's not living in the souls that went there, it may be living in children or grandchildren, or maybe even great-grandchildren of these folks that got saved. And what a revival they had at the lighthouse by the bridge. It says it being situated at the west end of a poorly lighted old span across the Willamette River. This gospel lighthouse was ideally located atop this building. In 1917, the First Apostolic Faith electric sign bearing the message, Jesus, the light of the world, was erected by one of the gospel pioneers. That was interesting. They called him Mr. Brother W.W. Paulson, which I think is the granddad to Brother Cliff, I think. Shortly after his conversion, many a weary, discouraged soul tempted to end it all. Remember, this thing's sitting right by the edge of the bridge, right there. And many a weary and soul tempted to end it all by jumping from the bridge into the dark waters of the river below was alerted by this sign and came into the services to seek God. Others walked across the bridge, heard the singing of sacred songs from open windows, and came up the stairs into a gospel meeting and found peace with God. In 1 week, 7 people who had planned to end their lives were saved at this church. Isn't it 7 people that would have been in the river and it would have been over? But they saw a sign that said, Jesus, light of the world. And in the hopelessness of sin and despair, they took hope in seeing Jesus, the light of the world. You know, there was one more, and this one is short. This is Brother Dave's. This is Brother Dave Anderson's, and I won't do the whole thing, but they got saved before they came in contact with our church. It was a long journey for them, but see how God works. They said sometime after they were saved, we were driving back to our band house and took a series of wrong turns in an unfamiliar neighborhood. We drove by a church that had a big sign on the outside of it, which read, Jesus, light of the world. My buddy said anybody who has a sign that big has to have something. So the next Sunday, we took our girlfriends to that church. We had long hair and wore clothes that went with our lifestyle, but no one at the church acted put off by our appearance. There we heard a sermon that witnessed to